A badly implemented trope can sink your whole novel. Using a trope involves walking a tight rope, or maybe a T-rope. A trope can only become a trope if it becomes popular enough. A trope that's only been used once is not really a thing. This means that for any given trope, there are a lot of good stories and probably quite a few bad stories that use it. Using a trope well is not so much a case of picking a bad trope versus a good trope, but using a trope in a bad way versus a good way. Nevertheless, there are some tropes that are a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more tricky to make work well, and those are the tropes that we're going to talk about today. So let's talk about some tropes that could sink your novel. They mainly have to do with icebergs. Starting with the chosen one, which I've chosen to talk about as trope number 1. You always need to answer the question, why is this protagonist, why is this hero the one who has to fix the plot? It's like, sure, the world is under threat and this random IT manager from Cleveland is going to save us all because some ancient SQL Server database has him listed as sysadmin. He's not our first choice, but this prophecy lays out that he's the guy, so he's the guy. The chosen one trope, or the prophesied hero, is an easy way around this issue. No matter how poor of a fit the hero is for solving the plot, they are the ones who have to do it because the prophecy says so. Prophecies are great. They make foreshadowing easy because you can hint at all kinds of stuff later on, and as I mentioned, it puts to rest any conversation about why the hero is the hero. The chosen one trope becomes problematic when it's leaned on too much as an excuse to fit a certain hero into a story. A hero who's not a great fit for a plot, someone whose capabilities will be taxed to resolve this plot, creates a lot of interest, and the chosen one gives a really strong excuse for why that person has to solve the plot. But the chosen one can very quickly become a crutch. It's lazy to rely on it too much to fit a hero into a story. If the only thing locking your hero into the plot is some prophecy, then you probably have a weak hero. It's kind of a paradox, but the best heroes are often the most unlikely person to solve a particular problem and also uniquely suited to solve that problem. It's a mixture, it's a balance between the two. That's really hard to pull off. It takes crafting a really well-crafted character to do that, but you'll end up with a better hero and a better story if you pull it off. There's nothing wrong with the chosen one as a trope. The problems come in when you rely on it too much to make your hero fit within the story. You have to do more work than just laying out a prophecy that says that they're the person who's going to solve this. Next trope that could potentially ruin your novel, fridging. Fridging happens when a character has something horrible happen to them. Usually it involves them signing up for long-term parking. And then the main reason for that horrible thing happening to them is to cause an effect on another character. The full name of this trope is Women in Refrigerators because there was a Green Lantern comic where his girlfriend was murdered and put in the refrigerator. Traditionally, this trope happens to a female relation of a male character, either a love interest or a parent or sister or something. And the effects of the bad thing that happens to that character is to motivate the male hero in some way. This trope really encompasses anything bad happening to one character solely as a plot device to motivate another character. The problem with fridging is that the effects of the negative events usually aren't actually explored in any way. They may even happen off screen, like the character gets a phone call or something about so-and-so, and then they get angry and go off to resolve the plot. They'll probably have moved on to a new love triangle within 3 chapters and have completely forgotten about the traumatic thing that initially spurred them to action. Fridging is bad because it ultimately weakens your characters. It weakens the hero character because it makes them seem kind of one-dimensional because they usually aren't actually affected by the traumatic thing that happened to someone close to them. and you weaken the character who gets fridged because they basically just become a plot device, something for you to traumatize to motivate another character. Fridging is a combination of bad intent and also poor writing. The writer has this heinous, horrible thing happen with no intention of actually exploring the effects of that thing in any real detail. And the responses of either the victim of that thing or the characters close to them is usually not realistic or handled well. That's just bad writing. If you're going to have this kind of stuff happen in your story, you're going to have to devote a lot of page time to conveying the effects in order for it to be realistic, in order for your characters to not just seem one-dimensional. It can't just be a quick moment that happens in chapter 2 so that your angsty protagonist can go off quipping and slaughtering bad guys for the rest of the story. Fridging, I don't think, is a trope that people intentionally use. I think it's just the result of bad writing. You can have the exact same events happen to the exact same characters, and if it's actually written well with well-developed characters, it won't be fridging because the reactions and the responses and how it shapes the characters will be more realistic and will have a lot more depth to it. This is a really good example of not necessarily a bad trope, but a bad execution of a trope. And the last trope that we're going to talk about today, the idiot plot. Oh, I spelled idiot wrong in my notes. An idiot plot is any plot where there's an obvious solution that the characters could take, but they don't because they're idiots. This is more of an emergent property of a story that has some logical holes in it. Like a lot of things in writing, this is bad unless it's intentional. You can have an idiot plot that is by design. Most comedies or satirical stories or even tragedies kind of are idiot plots, but it's intentional. The story's meant to be that way, so in those cases it works better. If your plot is held together by one misunderstanding or one piece of information that was missed, or if there's a solution to a problem that's obvious to everyone except every character in your story, then that's a problem. You have an idiot plot. One of the most common examples of this is having character A overhearing something that character B says that's bad about them, but they either misunderstand or miss part of the conversation and character B wasn't actually saying something bad about them. And then rather than just having like a 15-second conversation about what they heard, character A acts all frosty and untrustworthy or whatever towards character B for the rest of the story, and it causes a whole bunch of conflict. That's an example of an idiot plot. Something that could literally be solved by like a 10-second conversation, but the characters just don't do it for whatever reason. Now, a lot of tragedies and character downfalls are written around this idea. One thing that if the character would just change or if they knew, it would solve all of their problems. But in those cases, this is an intentional decision. In something like a tragedy or even something like a comedy, there's dramatic irony because the audience knows that the character isn't going to make the change. People making bad choices is a very realistic thing, and a lot of tragedies center around a flaw in a character, and oftentimes it's our flaws that make us make the wrong decisions. As I mentioned, an idiot plot is only a problem when it's not intentional, or if it's intentional and poorly executed. You need to be aware of the flaws or the miscommunication or the biases that are leading characters to make idiotic decisions. If you aren't, but your audience is, then that's a problem. I think there's two ways to avoid an idiot plot. One is to get a lot of feedback on your story, have beta readers, critique partners, editors, whoever, because somebody who's not you will potentially be able to pick up on some of these logical issues that lead to idiot plots. So that's thing number one. The second thing, I think, is just going through your story and thinking about what the most logical thing to do in any given situation is for the characters, and make sure that they're either making the logical decision or there's a well communicated reason why they aren't making that decision. You can have characters make all kinds of stupid decisions, and as long as the reader understands why they're making that decision, because it's a character flaw, or they're missing some piece of information, or they misjudge the situation in some way, whatever it is, as long as the reader feels like there's a good reason for the character to do something stupid, then they won't think your story is stupid. Speaking of stupid things, I hope this video wasn't stupid, because it's over now and I don't have the opportunity to make it not stupid now. So there you have it. I'd love to hear about your favorite or least favorite or poorly executed tropes, whatever, in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Oh, and if you're wondering, the cat and I are in a very heated contract negotiation, so he's outside the studio picketing right now.